All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your hosts, Alex Baquero. And if yesterday is any indication, it is Chris Mush Condit, your American villain voices. And as always, serving up the lukewarmiest of lukewarm opinions. And it's, Chris, there are scorching hot takes out there and everybody is feeling mighty damn cold. So, we need a little balance here in the Villaverse. I hope we're still capable of providing it for the people, but I'm not totally sure. You sent me some pretty sad stuff yesterday. We'll get into that in a moment. Before we do, follow, rate, subscribe, review, comment. Look at us pointing at all these spots where you can follow us. Go check them out. Chris, Villa aside, how is life treating you lately?
Pretty well. Things are going well here in North Carolina. Everybody is happy and healthy. Baseball season's chugging along. The Browns are terrible, so the world is where it's supposed to be, outside of Aston Villa. How are you, Alex?
Eagles are 2-0.
Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Yankees will make the playoffs, hopefully, although I don't really expect them to get out of the first round, so that's kind of disappointing. And basketball season is right around the corner. Knicks going to the finals.
Are they?
These are all the things I would much rather talk about than Aston Villa right now. But sadly, we are here. This is Red, White, Claret, and Blue. Unfortunately, not red, white, blue, and orange. So we're going to need to talk about Villa and what was another disappointing result yesterday. Chris, we're out of a cup already. Anyone who listened to my solo pod 2 days ago, where I recapped the match over the weekend, I said I did not expect us to stay in this cup long, so much so that I didn't even feel like it was necessary to do a preview of this Brentford match. So, Chris, let's dive right into it. Unai makes 7 changes, but brings in some pretty strong players and played a Brentford team that you and I both said earlier this year probably going to be fighting relegation, who made 10 changes of their own.
Yep.
And yet, well, we scored.
Yep. We did score, and that at least we broke that duck, so to speak. But I don't know. I was able to watch the first half pretty well. Work is involved, so you can't just sit there and stare at a screen if you're in our position in America here. But it was very much more of the same for the first half. A ton of possession. I think at one point at the 15 or 16 minute mark, Aston Villa had like 80% possession or 78% possession, close to it, and managed, I think, 1 shot on target, but it was nothing threatening. To me, it felt a lot like, again, to go back to the podcast you did solo, the definition of insanity, part 4 or 5 now that we're on at this point.
Probably.
It seems like there's a lot of the same thing, even though there are a ton of changes made. Ball gets moved around the back until the pressure is such that we turn the ball over, or we lob it forward down up the pitch and it lands to no one or lands to a defender. Or my personal favorite, which I texted you about during the game, the triangle near the touchline on either side, where the ball just moves back and forth in a triangle until we eventually either play it back to the back line or turn it over. And that was kind of how the first half went by and large. In terms of Elliott's goal, it was a really nice play by him to put the pressure on and force the issue. I think the nutmeg was a little fortunate in terms of where he decided to place that ball with a wide open net, and he went right at the keeper, and it just happened to get underneath him. But I will take the goal. So going into half up 1-0, you felt pretty good, and then things for me really went downhill from there. Alex, you can talk more about your thoughts on the first half before we jump into the second, or if you have anything you want to add.
I don't really, we're asking Unai to make changes and try something different. And while the personnel is changing, it seems like the tactics are not. So, I feel like we're really grasping at straws when we try to find positives here. It's, well, Jadon Sancho tried some stuff and hit the post.
Yeah, he did hit the post. Yeah.
Over the past 3 years, when has tried some stuff and hit the post been like our marker for potential man of the match?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he was the man, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's all we're coming away from with a positive here. And I think that says everything about not only where Villa is at, but also the performances on the pitch yesterday. So I don't really feel like it needs much elaboration. Elliott was fine, obviously got a goal. Again, I'll call back to my solo pod earlier this week, but calling for a more aggressive high press. How do you get the opportunity? Actually putting in a little defensive effort higher up the pitch. So maybe we've said before, Unai Emery might listen to this pod. So maybe he was listening to me the other day.
Maybe so.
Yeah. And, in terms of everything else, I don't know. I'm sick and tired of this.
Yeah. So, like, one thing I do want to say, Gasson is, like, to me, extremely raw, and you can kind of see that he's making runs that other players aren't anticipating. And there were moments, I think, and I think somebody actually called this out on Twitter, and I'm sorry that I don't remember who it was to credit them here, but there were moments during the game where you could see either players like John McGinn or someone like that, or Unai Emery talking through the phases of play with him because it seemed like he was just he was improvising in a system that really doesn't allow for a lot of improvisation in Unai Emery. So I think you're going to see, or it looks like you're going to see a struggle to fit in right now with Gasson, because he was out there yesterday, but he wasn't very effective. And like I said, it seemed like there was a disconnect between him and the rest of the players on the pitch. But that's hardly the biggest problem that Aston Villa has right now. Aston Villa have right now, I should say. So I'm disappointed to go out of the cup so early. I'm disappointed that it's been more of the same. I don't really understand how Matty Cash is up before Morgan Rogers to take a penalty when it did come to pens. I don't get that. On the positive side, Watkins finished his penalty, so that's nice. But tactically, I saw one clip or one quote from Unai Emery where he allegedly said that there's not enough data on Morgan Rogers taking penalties. He doesn't know whether or not he's comfortable taking them. But I don't have any other attribution other than some guy on Twitter. So I searched for it and couldn't find it anywhere else. So I think that may just be someone trying to get engagement. But I do wonder about why why Matty Cash took a penalty and Morgan Rogers did not. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Didn't Morgan Rogers take a penalty for us in preseason?
I believe he did.
Yeah, I don't.
How are you putting Cash out there before Morgan Rogers? That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Was he fifth? Maybe was he supposed to be the one to ice it at the end?
I'd have to look back. I really don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what the submitted list was, but perhaps he was supposed to be the last taker.
Yeah.
Villa never have good penalty takers.
No.
Like Ollie Watkins, crap. Yori has taken a few and been like, okay, some bad, but I think his record overall is crap. McGinn has not been great. Even before that, Grealish was not great when he was our penalty taker. Like, we really haven't had someone to bury him other than Anwar El-Gholzi in quite a while.
Yeah.
And I feel like before El Ghazi, we for a long time didn't really have a penalty taker, and he was sort of like the savior that came in and was actually able to finish them.
That's right. Didn't Benteke take pens?
He was good at penalties. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you can see how little we want to talk about this match.
Yeah.
But we're just counting back the penalty takers over the years, over the
Over
decades.
10 years, yeah.
So let me add this before we talk about the penalties. I've got two things left on this game, and we'll see what else you have to add. The first one, Chris, is that even being 1-0 up at halftime, even having a couple clean sheets, you just didn't feel good about it. And so I spoke in the last pod about how potentially our lack of offensive impetus is because of a renewed focus on containment of the ball to limit the opposition going the other way. And I should clarify that I meant that in theory. That in theory, Unai might be trying to have a little bit more protection of the ball and create opportunities in different ways so that we could be more defensively solid going the other way. The point that I didn't make and the stats that I didn't use are the fact that it's not working. Despite the fact that we have 2 clean sheets, we have something like the second highest expected goals against in the entire Premier League this year. And I think we are lucky to have not given up more goals than we already have. Like, we have underperformed or overperformed, depending on how you look at it, our expected goals against. So we both can't create going forward, and we still are very weak and susceptible at the back. And that is not an effective way to play any game, but especially cup football, because in cup football, if you get a 1-0 lead, you need to be able to, especially against Premier League opposition, shut it down and win that game. So that is kind of point one. You always saw the goal coming. But two, and I would like your cold water take on this. I touched on this last episode. Is, in your opinion, Unai Emery's seat getting a little hot?
I mean, I don't think it is with ownership yet. I think it is with some fans, yes. And I can understand why they think that and why your mind would go to that. It's a frustrating watch right now. But I think if we want to look realistically, so my cold water take on it is, if you want to realistically look at how this club is built, which is Unai Emery at the top of it and everybody else reporting to him, not the typical way it goes where there's a sporting director and scouting director and all those things that either are here with the manager here, and it is ownership, Unai Emery, everybody else. That's the way this club has been built, and his fingerprints are on everything. So I don't think you're going to see a quick trigger here. I think it would take quite a bit for ownership to make the decision to get rid of Unai Emery. So I think realistically, no, his seat is not getting hot. However, if this continues, the fans and pundits are going to get louder and louder. And so you need to start seeing not just improvements on the pitch, but some results. Goals in the Premier League would be nice, a win, things like that. Because I don't think anybody had this team sitting in relegation places at this point in the season, given the early schedule. So improvement has to come quickly, and it needs to come with points.
I agree. I think the only thing to add is, Chris, do you remember the conversations that we were having about 2 months into the season last year, when I was telling you the performances don't look right and I'm waiting for the wheels to fall off, and we are basically like a bunch of John Duran wonder goals from being in a relegation fight?
It's true.
So you could look at that two ways. You could say, hey, this is no real difference than how we started last year, and look at how we ended it, right? Competing at the top end of the table, performing well in the Champions League, all that kind of stuff. We just don't have John Duran to punch in a couple goals, and all of a sudden we have 2 wins. The other way to look at it is that, you just described this as a potentially quick trigger, and I do think that ownership would see a firing right now as a quick trigger. But you could also say that there's about a year and a half of evidence here that the tactics don't really work. This might not be the quick trigger that we think it is. There might have been some underlying indicators of future poor performance that were being glossed over by John Duran, Marcus Rashford, and our euphoria at making an improbable Champions League run on a very, very soft Champions League schedule. You're on mute.
I muted myself again. I tried to get out of your way, and here we are. So that's a fair point. Now that I'm actually talking to the people and not just my room. But I do think that, I mean, you remember the quote from ownership, and I don't remember which owner said it. It may have been Wes Edens, but I'm not 100% sure. They likened him to their Sir Alex Ferguson. They likened Unai Emery to their Sir Alex Ferguson. So I think that they're willing to ride out this bump and see, because ultimately the results did come last season. And you're right. We did have these conversations, and having John Duran wonder goals was something that I would long for now. But maybe we'll get Harvey Elliott wonder goals here. I don't think it'll be like that, but maybe we'll start getting some. But yeah, I can see your point, but I don't think that ownership are going to rush at all into this. And I think it would take quite a while of this sort of play and result to get Unai Emery out of Aston Villa.
That's fair. Anything that you are taking away from this game? I have one thing.
Okay. I mean, I've got that Konsa played really well. I thought that's what I got.
Fair. Mine is that if you are looking for any dash of optimism in this, Everton was a marginal improvement on Crystal Palace, and I would say that the performance and the players were probably a marginal improvement on Everton. It will kind of ignore the opposition that they were doing it against. So theoretically, the team is taking very, very tiny newborn baby steps in the right direction, and maybe that'll continue this weekend.
1.5 XG, right? 1.54 XG.
Yeah, you're right. We got over 1 finally.
Yeah.
And so I guess we're hoping that they take that forward this weekend when they travel to the Stadium Light to play Sunderland. So, Chris, let's move ahead to that game, and let's talk about the next team that's probably going to beat Aston Villa. So, overview of Sunderland. They spent like crazy since coming up. Shouts out to the Netflix documentary money that they got, or docuseries. They brought in God knows how many transfers. I really think it might have been close to 20, with well over 100 million net transfer spend. A few of them are kind of interesting and might ring a bell with some Villa fans. So remember last year, Chris, when we were dying to get the right back center back hybrid Heath-Trauda, who used Villa to get to Red Bull. Well, they've sent him out on loan after 1 year to Sunderland. So I don't know that he was the savior, the one who was going to save Villa from the horrors of Matty Cash.
Matty Cash looks pretty good right now, doesn't he? That's right. Yeah.
Yep. This will also be the Bertrand Traore derby.
Always remember that goal, Bert.
Red card walking Granit Xhaka has come off of his Bundesliga title winning campaign to Sunderland.
That's a great nickname. 10 out of 10 nickname for that one. I like that. Maybe we can get that going.
Hopefully we can.
Yeah.
Simone Adringa from Brighton, really exciting young winger who scored against Villa last year, and then their biggest summer acquisition, Habib Diarra in central midfield. A little bit bigger. I'll talk about him when we get into players a little bit later, but certainly seems to be acclimating to the Premier League fairly decently well. I personally like their business. As you look down the list of guys that they've brought in, there is definitely a mix of experience. Say what you will about his discipline, but like Granit Xhaka has played at a very, very top tier with some young, really exciting players. And, I think that's really proven itself to be true over the first 4 weeks of the season. They seem to be really up for it.
I agree. You wondered, or at least I wondered, when you bring in that many new players, you often see a real difficulty in terms of guys gelling and bedding in together. But they don't seem to have had that issue, even though they've got a bunch of new faces on the squad. But I like the business a lot. I've always had a soft spot for Traore, probably because of that goal that he scored a couple of years back for Villa. But I always thought there was a pretty good player there with him. And I mean, having watched the Netflix doc that you already referenced, it's difficult not to root for Sunderland, at least from my perspective. And maybe that's partially because of like the Browns fan in me, and you just see a team that can never seem to get over the hump and win anything. And naturally, I'm drawn to that aspect of their fandom. And also their majority owner is a distant relation of Julia Louis Dreyfus, and is a monster Seinfeld fan. I'm here for that. I really like the mix of players they brought in, and I hope that they have continued success, just not this weekend.
Yeah, and a few caveats. Yes, they sit 7th. Yes, they're 2-1-1. They haven't necessarily played anyone that we think too highly of.
Sure.
They beat West Ham and Brentford, 2 teams that we expect to be in the relegation race. They lost to fellow relegation battler Burnley, and then drew Crystal Palace, who we think is a decent squad. But that's what they need to do to stay up. And,
Exactly.
comfortably finish mid-table, beat the teams that are going to be finishing around you, and stay competitive against ones that are a little bit higher up the table, and they can do that. And, they bring in all of these, and you talk about how all of these signings, and you talk about how difficult it is for signings to bed in what seems to be the polar opposite of what Villa and Unai Emery do. They bought guys and brought in guys that their manager wants to use. And so what's interesting about them so far is that they have a fairly unchanged starting 11. Most of their guys have played all 4 of their matches so far this season. Most of their guys are playing 90 minutes in those matches. They're not really rotating the 11 so far. So they brought guys in that they knew the manager wants to use, and he's been sticking with it. Now, in terms of style of play, they have a 4-3-3. They play with lots of width. I mean, lots of width. When you look at their who scored stats, only 19% of the time do they come down the middle, which is incredibly low. Usually teams that are low are still like 25, 28%. And when you're a team that's going to battle relegation like that, makes a lot of sense. Keep the ball high and wide away from danger, where you have your most dangerous players, and like players like Simone Adringa. And so that to me says they are very well drilled. They are ready for this. They are not going to make it easy on Aston Villa.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest concern, having looked over the same stuff that you did, who scored especially is one of our favorite sites to look at for this information. But the biggest concern for me is the width that they're bringing. I wanted to highlight that because I think it's going to be difficult for Aston Villa to defend, in part because of Yuri Tielemans being out and having someone like probably John McGinn playing the double pivot with Kamara, and the fact that Villa have naturally become so narrow in attack, that the field for Villa the pitch is sort of shrunk horizontally. When you see a team that's going to spring their attack down the wings, I think there's real potential for a lot of exposure against, say, a Matty Cash or Luka Dean or whoever is playing at the left and right back. I think that's a particular point that we want to look at and be aware of in terms of Sunderland's ability to get at Villa.
I think that's a really good shout by you. I do think that this game is going to be won and lost in the channels. You look at what Sunderland is weak against as well, and it makes sense. They are weak against teams that play with width and attack down the wings because they are committing these guys forward in those areas. And so you would think if they get forward in that way, you should be able to win the ball, attack down the wings and counter them. But Villa won't have the guys out there to make those runs and get in behind and take advantage of that space. So it seems like the way that Sunderland want to defend is exactly the style of play that Villa want to enact. I'm very curious to see how stubborn Unai Emery continues to be and whether he's going to switch up his tactics or not to actually get at the opposition.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll really know until we actually start seeing the game. I think right now we've been talking about it for what feels like the entire summer now. There's just not enough width in this squad, and no one is committed to staying wide. And you have Cash, and you have Luka Dean to an extent, and to a larger extent, Maatsen creating with their runs from the right back and left back position. But you don't have the Leon Baileys of the world that will stay on the touchline and drive the ball, either staying wide to the touchline and going near the corner or going to the end line to keep the defense stretched. We're not seeing that right now. And to me, what Villa need to do is to find someone committed to those type of movements with the ball, that type of dribbling, that type of attack. I want to see what we saw so much of in the previous couple of seasons with Unai Emery. I mean, how many times did you see a player go to the end line and draw it back for a cutback goal? And Villa made it look easy, and now it just looks so hard in attack. And I'm worried that we're going to see more of the same against Sunderland. It's a big concern for me.
Yeah, the one thing that we have going for us is that despite scoring all those goals, Sunderland has gotten a little lucky in that way. They only have 9 shots per game, and they've scored 5 goals on a 3.4 expected G so far, XG so far. So they've been held scoreless twice. They scored 3 goals against West Ham on a 0.7 XG. So like there should be some regression to the mean in their offensive stat. That being said, I think Everton were only averaging like 10 or 11 shots per game, and they came out and hung 20 on us.
Right.
So, I'm not sure that our defensive structure is going to keep this thing going. What I will say also that gives me pause is, again, referring back to who scored, is something like their top 8 rated players are all defensively minded. It's center backs, it's their goalie, it's Granit Xhaka. So if their best performing players are on the defensive side of the ball, and we won't attack down the wings, I don't know.
That doesn't make me feel great. All right, and I understand what you're saying, and I've been saying sort of the same thing, but without directly referencing that, again, Sunderland seemed to be set up well to defend against Aston Villa. So I'm gonna do something here that's not in the rundown and that I've not done before on this podcast. I'm gonna look directly into the camera. I need results. I need positivity. Because listen, man, I'm a Browns fan. I'm a Guardians fan. They're playing well. I'll take that. It's fun right now. But I'm a Browns fan. I'm an Aston Villa fan. And let me tell you, there's not any positivity coming from the Cleveland Browns this season. It's dark. It's dark over here. I need help. I need positive results, or it's going to get very, very dark on this podcast. And if you want to see me have a mental breakdown, then if this keeps happening, we might just see it. So please help me and score some goals. Do something. I need it so badly. So badly. Thank you for your time.
Well, Villarati, that is the sound of a broken man who really, I feel like, just stared right into the depths of my soul of despair.
You're welcome.
So, Chris, we've talked about Granit Xhaka, we've talked about Simona Dringa. The only other player that I wanted to mention as a little bit of a shout out is Habib Diarra, most expensive summer signing. He's got 6 shots already, but no goals. a little bit bigger of a midfielder. I'm not going to say that he's like Yaya Toure 6'3", 2 whatever mold, but he's like 5'10", 163. Definitely someone who is high up on the team in like progressive carries. So expect him to get on the ball and kind of drive it forward into the attacking areas and maybe find some of those wingers. So you look at him probably taking up a space on the right side of midfield up against John McGinn. Definitely going to need to be a little bit savvier to kind of deal with him. Anything else that you want to talk about on the Sunderland side?
No, I think you nailed it. I think you've got great shout outs there. And I think the football reference, FBref comp being John McGinn is funny because there should be like a caveat to that. John McGinn minus the butt, he doesn't have that. And this is the content I'm bringing today. You're welcome.
Yes, that is a good shout. His number one player comp on FBref is John McGinn, funny enough.
Asterisk.
Yes.
Literal asterisk.
Sans butt. Baby got no back. Villa, what do we expect, Christopher?
I'd like to say that I expect something different. But there's nothing so far this season that leads me to think that they're going to perform any differently, that they're going to do anything differently tactically. So I think that in the event that Villa do win, it's going to be a slog. I hope I'm wrong, but I think you're going to see them come out in a very typical Unai Emery formation, and they're going to drill until they can find a way to break down Sunderland, and hopefully it happens and we can hold the lead. But that's at this point, and I know we're only 5 games in, but at this point I need to see it before I can tell you that I'm expecting anything beyond what we've seen so far.
Yeah, listen, we've talked about all the ways that Villa could go beat Sunderland, right? You play down the wings, you keep Jadon Sancho and Daniel Malin high and wide, and you get to the byline and get those cutbacks to Ollie Watkins and do something a little bit different, play a little bit more direct. But they're not going to do that. You're right. I don't. This is almost the most pointless part of this entire podcast because we know what Villa is going to do. It's the same thing that Villa's been doing for the last 4 games because we can't. I don't know.
So
I'm hearing myself say it. The one thing that I will add though, and I'll do a callback to a point that you made earlier in the show about how Villa were playing against Brentford, right? Those little triangles in each corner. And I guess maybe if that's kind of it, if Unai Emery's new tactical wrinkle is like to create combinations kind of on the side in the corner and get someone running, across goal with the ball to I don't know, find a runner in behind or across to the back post or something of that sort, and the team just isn't moving in the right direction yet, is that a way to potentially beat Sunderland? Maybe, but we haven't seen Villa execute it to any sort of success thus far. So like I don't know why it would work over the weekend on Sunday. I don't know. You're a broken man. I'm a broken man. I feel like a broken record with how much I just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. So maybe if you have nothing to say, we should just go to lineups.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to say. Is you mentioned Sancho, so I want to hear your lineup in terms of what you think they're going to trot out.
Emmy, Matty Cash, Konsa, Mings, Dean, McGinn. Is Kamara healthy again?
Yes.
Is he back?
He
Okay.
played against Brentford.
Yeah, that's right. He did play against Brentford. McGinn, Kamara, and then I think the front line will be Sancho, Elliott, Rogers, Watkins.
I can see that, and I had everything the same at the back through the defensive midfield, so I'm not going to go through that. But I was wondering if they wouldn't go with a different wrinkle, because this worked in the England U21s. Elliott, Rogers, Mullen, and Watkins, but I don't know that Unai is going to do that. But you could have either Elliott or Rogers play left, and Mullen outright. I think the issue you're going to run into is all three of them want to occupy the same space, pretty much.
Yeah, you know what? Sancho probably lacking a bit of fitness and playing in midweek probably isn't ready to start at the weekend. So you're right, it probably will be Mullen. I don't get the sense that he'll want to go with Gasson, but he also doesn't seem to trust Mullen all that much either. So I don't really know. It's probably a toss up.
I'm still better with Mullen out there myself than Gasson at the moment, and I would rather see him. So what? What do you have for a score? It feels like this is a natural point to go to that.
I have 1-0 Sunderland.
I have 2-1 Sunderland, just because I can't take another game of not scoring.
We have to score eventually, right?
That's
Like we do have to score eventually. We're not going to go 38 games without scoring a goal.
I wouldn't think so. So I've got 2-1 Sunderland, though. So we both have losses. So clearly we are very depressed, and we need to see some positivity here. So please, let's get it done this weekend. And if you feel any differently, give us a shout in the comments on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram,
Spotify,
YouTube, our YouTube friends, Spotify.
YouTube,
that's right.
Please. Yeah. YouTube.
Apple Podcast.
Let's see. Is Chris? I actually didn't look. Do we have anyone that we need to give a shout out to?
Oh, I didn't look either. I'm so sorry. I've let you down here. But let's do some live production here, everybody. Are you pulling up the old YouTube page there, Alex?
I'm pulling up the old YouTube page. Let's see who
firing up the old YouTube machine.
Okay, so we got one here. Let's give a shout out to.
It's got to be Black Country.
Davon FX.
Oh, no.
Davon FX. No, it was not. It was not. It was not our usuals. So welcome to the crew. Said that he or she loves this. I said we love you, and everybody else. If you comment, we'll love you too. So hop on in there. Every platform, we check them all, or at least I do. And
wait, you just checked it right now, so don't be calling me out for that.
I'm ignoring that. And we will probably be back sometime Sunday evening with a recap of a match that hopefully Chris and I are delightfully wrong about. So, Chris, until then, good luck with work. We will get there in the end. And as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.